Yes, you've got me burning, and this is my new 11 Blitz T49 US Tier 8 light tank, and I believe that at this point it's probably the best light tank in the game. I have a soft spot for Type 62, but at least they share the top position. So why do I love this tank? Well, it's very fun to play. It feels almost like Borsig Waffenträger, but instead of being a fisherman that sits and waits for its prey, T49 is a hunter which tracks its prey, gets behind and kills very efficiently. So in this video I'll talk about this tank, I'll talk about ammunition, and I'll show a couple of good games which highlight how I play this tank and its strengths and weaknesses. Speaking of armor, well, it's a light tank, so what could you expect? Everyone would penetrate you. Big guns with high explosive rounds, other guns with AP rounds, everywhere, even through the turret. So avoid staying in the open, but still try to play it as a light tank, try to scout. The things which you should not be doing in this tank. First, try not to ram anything, because even if you see an opponent which is smaller than you, like Dracula or Soviet T-43, you will still be losing health, so don't try to touch anything. The second important thing is that try to avoid shooting high explosive rounds in the vicinity of other tanks and walls, because splash radius would hurt you a lot. Now we have two top guns available for this tank. One is the normal gun, and honestly I haven't played a single game with this, because normal gun requires you to stay in the open to realize its potential, and for light tanks it doesn't work well. Of course, the defining gun for this tank is rocket launcher, which is just awesome. This gun is very imprecise. You will aim it for ages and still miss, and reload time is pathetic. It's like 4 rounds per minute. But then those high explosive shells fully penetrate, people will be hurt and they will scream. Notice that I've chosen calibrated shells as my first equipment slot, and the reason is that you will get more penetration with high explosive shells and hit rounds, which is very important for this tank, because hit rounds actually have pretty bad penetration. Initially, when I just started to drive this tank, I noticed that I can't penetrate anything with those hit rounds. It was especially disappointing when I was seeing IS-3 and I was loading hit shell and I couldn't penetrate its lower plate. It was completely red. So I removed all the hit shells. I was just shooting high explosive shells, and eventually I realized that I was wrong, because those hit shells could be quite useful at some point. And this is a very, very important thing about this tank. If you want to drive it effectively, you have to build a kind of mental table in your brain. And in this table, for every tank T49 meets on the battlefield, you should know if you could fully penetrate it with high explosive round, and if and where you could fully penetrate it with hit round. So when you approach a tank and you know that you could fully penetrate with high explosive round certain surface, you preload that high explosive round. If you can't fully penetrate with high explosive, you load hit round, and if hit round doesn't go in, then you switch back to high explosive round. So for example, I know that Soviet heavy tanks can't be frontally penetrated with hit rounds, so I shoot high explosive. When I get behind Soviet heavy tanks, I know that there is a certain plate at the rear of the tank which could be fully penetrated with high explosive round, so I keep my high explosive round for this tank. At the same time, I know that when I'm going after German heavy tanks, specifically Tigers, I won't be able to penetrate anything with high explosive rounds, but side armor and rear armor could be penetrated fully with heat round, which means that I switch to the heat for those tanks, and I will be doing a lot of damage. Fully penetrating heat round will do more damage than partially penetrating high explosive round. And this is a very important thing to know about this tank. It's effective ammo usage, which you should learn. You could watch videos like this one, but normally you'll just drive this tank and it will build in your head eventually. Now let's have a look at a certain situation with Luve. So I am trying to escape from the tight situation, and I'm not that fast to switch shells. I have high explosive round preloaded, I shoot it, and I'm doing less than 300 damage, which is a typical roll for that thick armor. Now I'm reloading, trying to reset my camo, and when I come back I see the side of the lure, and now I am shooting hit round, and that hit round does almost 500 damage. It's almost twice as much as I would be able to do with high explosive round. So that's why it's so important to understand which type of shell you should be using against which tank, and that's why it's a crucial skill for T49 driver. Now we will see several games where I'm driving T49, and hopefully you will see why I love this tank so much. So typically I play in Supremacy mode. Well, I have this mode enabled because I feel that light tanks have advantage in this mode. They are very fast, they could capture bases, they could reset capture points, so they are very useful in Supremacy mode. But you still should be very careful to avoid situations like this, especially when you are a light tank and you know that T49 is on the other team. Also have a look at this Centurion and notice that I load hit round, because hit round works well against the frontal armor of its hull. High explosive rounds don't penetrate it fully, and sides of Centurion have those skirts which won't let hit rounds to penetrate. Later there will be another game, which was quite early game when I wasn't carrying much hit rounds. I was out of hit rounds, and this was one of the reasons why I lost this game. So now I'm going to help my team. I have high explosive round loaded, and the shot that I will be taking against the Tiger is actually pretty lucky. It shouldn't be causing that much damage, and I was surprised that it did, because it was completely yellow. Probably I set him on fire, and this is something that you will be doing a lot in this tank. But my primary client is that glacial tank. Yes, that thin plate at the rear of the tank could be fully penetrated with high explosive round, and that's why you love T49, because it could do things like this. But now I'm getting a bit high, and I become rather careless, and I go against two heavy tanks, and that's something you shouldn't be doing on T49. I lost some health ramming that tank, and they all focused me, and I died pretty quickly. Again, don't do this when you are driving light tanks. Switch to Rambo mode when you go against like one enemy tank, but it's a bad idea when there are two of them and they could shoot you a couple of times. So again, you should be pretty careful when you are driving light tanks. The game you will see now is very close, and I was very unfortunate in this game because I missed a couple of shells and some of them were low rolls, but let's see how it goes. So I'm driving light tank, and it's a good scout. And what I love to do in this tank on this map is to rush to that hill on the side, jump on top of it, and spot the enemy force while they are deploying. Yeah, like this. I really love doing this thing. And now I'm back, I'm reloading, and I'm trying to understand how teams deploy. I noticed that the other flank doesn't meet any resistance. So at this point I'm screaming for our tanks to run away, because I expect that all that team would go to our flank and we will be just stomped to the ground. So I'm running away. I noticed that I see the opportunity at this base. Yes, that tiger, and that was very unfortunate miss. I could potentially I could have killed it with 2 shells, because the second one penetrates, and now that tiger could be dead. So again, this is very unfortunate, but I'm still trying to support my team. Now I have this very annoying KV-13, and after putting that shell into him, I'm trying to escape from this situation because there are just too many guns around me. So I did the damage, and now I'm bailing out. And I'm trying to stay safe and preserve my health pool, because we have heavies which engage those tanks at the base. I also noticed that I have Panther, and the Panther is one shot for me, so I'm loading high explosive shell and kill it. That's what you have to notice on the map. Sometimes it's very easy to kill someone with a single shot. They look healthy, but for you it's still one shot. Now this T49 is doing exactly the right thing. He's trying to hide behind KV-4, and that goes really well for him, and I didn't have a shot. Now I'm trying to catch that T49, but no, he escapes, and I have to waste my shell on T34. The situation is not good. And notice that I am out of hit rounds, and this is pretty bad, because that Centurion would be a big problem to me. You see, high explosive rounds, they don't do much damage to this tank. Now I see IMX again. Probably hit round would be a good option, but high explosive round also would do its job. But again, I was lucky that I was able to see the side of IMX. Otherwise I would be doing not that much damage. And now I am one-on-one against Centurion. And at this point I could have run on the other side of the map, but he has more precise gun, so most likely our trade would be ineffective. And with hit round I would be able to kill that Centurion right now and win the game. But now he is alive, and I'm getting shot in return several times because he has this great rate of fire, and I just can't do anything against him. That miss was also pretty unlucky, and we are both one shots to each other. So that's why you should carry a certain amount of hit rounds, because in situations like this they would be very useful. So I decide to get close to Centurion and try to outplay him, but unfortunately I don't have that good reaction. So what I'm doing is that I try to proximity spot him, and I will be rocking back and forth, trying to get into the situation where he would be thinking that I'm actually rolling back, but instead of that I will rock forward, so I would have some time. But unfortunately, again, he has probably better reaction than I do, and I lost. This game was lost. So the big lesson from this game is to keep certain amount of hit rounds and to know where and when you should be using them. Again, this is very important, this is a crucial thing for this tank. But sometimes RNG is on your side and you still could have a great game and pull out the victory. Again, we are playing in Supremacy mode and I'm trying to find the enemy for my team. I'm driving to the center of the map, well, to the right center of the map. But anyways, this is the place to be when you are driving light tank. We don't see anyone, well, we see someone, but not on our side, and we decide to capture this base, which is what you should be doing, right, in the light tank. And now I'm actually turning because I would like to help my team, and from that dune I would be able to shoot red tanks at the side, which is a pretty good place to be. Alternatively, I could be going to the right because I would be able to hit them from behind. But anyways, that was a pretty lucky shot. Centurion was set on fire, which happens sometimes. I'm not always that lucky. And we have already a couple of dead tanks. So at this point I'm trying to keep my distance between the red tanks because they all stay together, and the problem is that they could turn their guns at the same time at me, which would be pretty bad. Rear plate of US tank is pretty weak, so high explosive round will do a lot of damage. And that was the opportunity that I was looking for when I was driving to that side of the map. And now I'm trying to get closer because and finish that T-28. Yes, because frontally it's actually a pretty good tank. I believe that I have something over 70% win rate on this tank. It's actually closer to 80, so it's not that bad. But this is not a good tank for Supremacy mode. I'm loading hit round because hit round should be able to fully penetrate IMX. And yes, it does a lot of damage. And now the situation is not good because I'm one shot for most of the tanks, red tanks, and they are pretty healthy. So I'm trying to get back to the dunes, and I hope that I would be able to snipe from those dunes. On my way I'm trying to put round and T34. It doesn't do a lot of damage. And I think that I don't have much time to drive around the map at this point, because you see those red tanks are pretty distracted. So I sense the opportunity to get behind them and put my high explosive shell into the thin rear plate of T34. Yeah, something like this. But unfortunately my team dies pretty fast. And soon I will be one-on-one versus J Panther. Yes, and the situation is pretty tough. It's closer to what you have seen before. But fortunately, I'm pretty sure that I would be able to kill Panther with a single high explosive round, and I will do this. I was lucky in this game. So that's T49 for you, one of the best, if not the best, light tank in the game. So thanks for watching, and hope to see you driving this tank soon. But keep in mind that this is really for good players, and if you are just starting to play this game, you probably should pick something which has more armor. Good luck!